Hey everybody, Thomas Gettman. Such a fun week because we have a very special guest joining us for this live stream, LIFTu Live. Paul Bernstein is my cohort, a co-founder actually of LIFT, the company behind our weekly video podcast. And he said, I have got this spectacular person we have to have on our weekly show as one of the top 2023 interview gets. And she agreed to come on and join us. It is Esther Ayorinde-Iyamu. We welcome you to the LIFTu Live interview. Esther, tell us a little bit, just if you were giving that, we're just getting to know you speech, what do you do? How do you encapsulate all of the incredible experience you've amassed in your work life into an elevator speech?
Well, first off, Tara, thank you so much for not only not butchering one Nigerian last names. You mastered it. So thank you so much for that kind introduction. And thanks to both you and to Paul for allowing me to be part of this. Very excited. Okay, the elevator pitch. So I am the founder and CEO of a company called GrowthQ. We are a matching platform for tech sales professionals to match to mentors, as well as to full-time and fractional work. We came out of stealth in August and getting quite a bit of traction in market. So really, really excited. Outside of GrowthQ, I'm also a partner in a teeny tiny venture firm here in Silicon Valley called One Flourish. We focus on entrepreneurs that truly care about company culture, building great teams, and want to make a positive impact in the world. Outside of what I'm doing now, prior to that, I spent 16 years at an incredible Fortune 64 tech company, in a ton of go-to-market and sales roles and product management, biz dev, emerging markets, all the fun things. And that at that company is where I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Paul Bernstein, which I have a funny story for you, Tara. Don't let me forget it.
Uh-oh.
And then I know, right? And outside of my professional career, I'm a lifelong, I guess you would call it life, because most of my life I've been a dancer. Dancer and choreographer, and danced for 3 professional NFL and NBA teams.
Amazing. We have so much to get into with everything you just mentioned, but before we pick your brain a little bit more about your experience, we have to bring Paul in. How did you and Esther come to start off as colleagues and become friends, Paul?
Oh my gosh. I mean, how do I speak after that incredible introduction? Esther came to, you kind of skipped mentioning the name of the company. Am I not allowed to say the name of the company, Esther, or would you prefer I not?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, the Fortune 64 company is called Cisco. It's certainly a big part of my life, and 16 years there is a big part of your life. I think it was, I don't remember the exact years, like 2005, 2006, I think it was, right? So I've been, yeah, or 07. Okay, I had been with Cisco for several years at that point. Had done really well as one of the leaders in the area, and my boss came to me and said, we've got a hot young recruit coming out of the what Cisco called the ASR program, which is there were 2 main, like, kind of, I guess you would call them college recruitment programs, because
it's like the draft.
Although
think of it like
the draft, like the NFL draft, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're not all college recruits, because they think they accepted people a few years out of college, but early in career professionals that were exemplary and top of this, that, and the other thing, which obviously Esther was. And they had one for sales and one for engineering. And some of the best leaders at Cisco that I've worked with over the years came out of that program. It was just an excellent, excellent program. And, Esther came in and she just had all this amazing talent and presence. I mean, you could see it here on camera. I think that's one of the biggest things, is Esther has presence, right? When she comes into a room, people she lights up the room, and people know who she is, or at least they know how they feel about it. And, I was supposed to, help her out and mentor her and such. And, she very, very quickly took off like a rocket ship. I mean, I can't even say that I had that much impact, because it was before very long she was on to the next level and the next level and the next level. And I'm like, wait a second, what's going on here? And Esther was one of the top executives of the company by the time she left. And, because of a lot of factors, not the least of which she's an amazing human being. But, we actually have, believe it or not, just a lot of things in common. And so we became really good friends, and, we socialized a lot outside of work. And she even helped, I'm not going to mention her name because she's going to be so embarrassed, but she even helped my daughter with some dance lessons during the time. My daughter was also a professional dancer as a youth dancer, and went on to go to college for that. And now she's pursuing another career. But it was really, really special for me to see that and to experience that. And it really drew us closer.
That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that, Paul. When you think about that incredible rise through the ranks that Paul describes at Cisco, Esther, can you just give us a little bit of insight about how that felt to you to start out essentially coming in really, right out of college, but as somebody who was tapped to have that potential and then to be able to see that evolve so quickly? Just give us a little bit of insight about how that felt and where that, ultimately landed you, as Paul said, like near like the number or supporting and helping lead thousands of other people that ultimately were looking to you to be the leader that, you once started out in their shoes.
Yeah. Gosh, how did it feel? There's so many there's many phases and different emotions. I would say in the earlier parts of my career, it felt like I was an imposter. I mean, heck, it still feels like an imposter, but you're just in a space of wanting to learn from as many people as you can. And you're walking into the room and you're not the smartest person in the room. And so you feel as though you're meant to be there. So you might as well soak up as much as you can from everyone around you. I would say in the mid-tiers of I won't say mid-tiers of my career, because I think I am in the middle of my career, but I would say in the middle of my tenure at the company, I would say then it was, hey, I know what I'm doing. Now it's, well, what impact am I going to have? Yeah. And that's when I started taking a little bit more risk, trying different things, pushing the envelope. I also had the most amount of freedom to pack on more during that time, right? My first few years at Cisco is when I took a break from dance. And while I taught still, I was really hyper-focused on really learning the profession. And then after that 3 years is when the next 5 years, 4 or 5 years or so happened, where I was dancing in the NFL and NBA while also working at Cisco. And so I think that chunk of time was more about, okay, I've mastered what it is I'm doing. How can I optimize? How can I prioritize? How can I scale? How can I empower others and still be able to pack more in? And then I think the last, call it the last 6-7 years, I really pushed myself outside of my comfort zone, went back to that. I'm the imposter in the room. I would say the last 6-7 years, I was the youngest, least paid, and likely only in every single table from that last 6 years of my time. So I was the youngest, the least paid, and the most junior at every single table after that. And one might hear that and not really understand what I did, whatever, but just hear that statement and think, oh my gosh, you should be so angry. You were the least paid and you were the only, oh my goodness. But there was such opportunity sitting in a room and being on a team with people that are 3 levels your senior. Yeah. Sometimes it's very intimidating to even want to share my perspective, but there was mutual learning both ways. There was a reason why I was at that table, to share perspective, to help all of us as a team get better. And in turn, each one of those leaders poured into me, whether intended or not, learnings, right? And so that never goes away. That just always is there. So what did I feel? I felt incredible gratitude, lots and lots of learnings, and oftentimes an imposter.
I appreciate your candor, and it's amazing. The common denominator is you were always willing to put yourself outside of your comfort zone, which is not something that, everybody is willing to do. So I really respect that. I'm going to bring Paul in to comment about what you saw in Esther when you described her first, joining your team as somebody that you knew it wouldn't be long until she would sort of ascend to a more prominent leadership role, as is, ultimately what played out. What was it about her that struck you as somebody who had something special? Because so many people are always out there on the hunt for, good talent and somebody who's going to be a great hire. And what are these attributes that she possessed that we can look to find others, of a similar making?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because I think anyone who knows Esther or even follows Esther, because, she's developed a following, she's, well known across the industry. So far be it for me to be, the one to declare this is, what makes Esther Esther. I mean, a lot of people have opinions about that. In my opinion, I think it's something that was that I've always thought of when I see this in other people as unteachable. It's that innate ability to, focus, to be, determined. And, when you think about, and when I coach other people as well as, for myself, because we're all human, and I oftentimes deal with confidence issues like everybody else. And you think about, can I do this? And then you look at Esther and you realize, yeah, you can, because there wasn't anything that she put her mind to that she couldn't do. And she was able to juggle all of these. Any one of the things that she did simultaneously are like the top of somebody else's game. And she did them all at the same time. And it's an incredibly impressive thing to watch and be around and experience. I guess for lack of any other word, I would say, Esther is an inspiration. She was an inspiration to me. She was someone I could point to for others that may or may not have known her at the time, where I could say, you should be more like her. And she'd be that source of inspiration.
Paul is on a mission to get me to just be all emotional today.
Oh, I love it. Hey, he brings up a great point. For you to go from being at the top of your game in the tech world, essentially coming there, ready to do business, so to speak, and then transition into being at the top of your game as a professional dancer with NFL and NBA teams, it was an incredible balancing act that you were able to pull off. How did you do that? Because clearly that had to be an incredible shift, literally in the same day, of going from the boardroom to the court.
Literally. And there are pictures of me like transitioning, laptop in hand, sprinting into the stadium. So bad. My teammates would make so much fun of me. Oh my goodness. I've been asked this before, and I say this in interviews often. Prioritization is so important. Like so important. Community, so important. And then being present. So prioritization, there's no way you can do all those things and do them well all at the same time. So at some point, you've got to prioritize the different things that you know you can do and are good at in whatever stage or time that it is the highest priority. And then, balance between those priorities and continually to reprioritize day in, day out, hour by hour. I would say community was really, really important for me as well. There's no way I could have done those things without incredible family that had my back, people that were absolutely, that gave me grace, right? I can't tell you how many holidays I've missed. I can't tell you how many birthdays I've missed, and we've had to like reschedule or do something different. And I also know my weaknesses, and I know the teammates who have been like, hey, look, this isn't your strength. So I'm going to stand in and make sure I support you here and be there for you and carpool with you. And, whether it's my engineer supporting me side by side and making sure, hey, I know you're going to have a really late night because of that game. So I'm picking you up first thing in the morning. You don't got to worry about driving. You just got to focus on what we've got to do. Right. I mean, that sounds small, but it's that piled up. It makes those shavings piled up, make a really big pile of community that makes it make sense. And then the last piece I would say is being able to be present. That takes another P, which is preparation, quite frankly. But you can't do a lot of things all at the same time. So you have to absolutely be as present as you can for whatever that thing is, whether it's remembering that 5-minute routine and, that's intricate and technical and all those formation changes in 100-yard span, right? Like, you can't do that and also think about a huge presentation you've got to give to an executive tomorrow. You've got to do one thing at a time. And be completely present. But the only way you can do that is if you actively prepare. And I had to prepare like everything, meals, when you would shower, when you would get to call people on the phone, when you would get to think about the thing you were going to get ready to do. I mean, you had to prepare for everything. You had to prepare for your weaknesses. You had to prepare when you were going to get in your own way. You just gotta ridiculously prepare for all that. And not saying that I had it perfect all the time. But having a mix of those things together really, I would say helped me.
Speak to the point that you were then taking some of your insight, your experience, and you were doing empowerment camps to really boost self-esteem of young women. What an incredible role model then you must have been for some of those peers who you danced with, so that they saw you as, wow, she has a successful career as an executive with a tech company, yet she's also a dancer like we are. I mean, talk about how they received you maybe differently than some of the other individuals who were not carrying the load of doing a professional job by day that was just, if not more demanding than doing the dancing.
Yeah. I always I'm baffled by this, because while I appreciate how taxing both sides are, I'm baffled by this when my teammates are so in awe. Oh my gosh, Esther, you do these great things. And I'm like, wait a minute, but you're a doctor. Or wait a minute, but you're a reporter. Or you're a mom of 3 and you figure this out running your home and home businesses plus keeping 3 humans alive. Well, 4, if you think about partner as well. I mean, many of these women, and now the industry's evolved to not just women, but also men, don't just do 30 hours per week of the profession of a professional dancer. They're also doctors, lawyers, engineers, housekeepers, business owners, you name it. At the same time, it's just as taxing, right? And so, I don't know. To me, it baffles me that you'd be so impressed because, running a household with 3 humans that you've got to keep alive, and their healthcare and their nutrition and balancing, family outside. I mean, there's just so much to that I have such respect for, which I didn't always. People who knew me also know I didn't always have respect for different types of professions. But quite frankly, most people are carrying those things and don't even show it. You can't see a badge on LinkedIn for it. And they do it, and they do it well.
Well said. Thank you. If you're just joining us, this is Thomas Gettman. We are so honored for our weekly LIFTu live interview series to have Esther Ayorinde-Iyamu. I'm trying to work on my accurate pronunciations of her incredibly vast and varied career and to capture everything that you've amassed in a way that really reflects Paul's enthusiasm for having you join us, because he said so much of, you know, what she brought to the table was unique. And I think we have to highlight that, Paul, and to have you speak to, you know, not every woman who was NBA, NFL, professional dancing was also rising through the ranks of a company like Cisco. So what was it like for you to see somebody like Esther, who was so different than the stereotypical, you know, male tech worker, so to speak, to have her come in and be this breath of fresh air and then not just excel, but thrive in a way that she passed up all those other people that, you know, would have said, get in line. I've already got this place locked in, so to speak.
Well, you know, it's funny. The company that we both worked at, it tried to really portray, at least back then, you know, it tried to portray that the culture was such that these are the only people we're bringing into the company anyway, right? So we were all like top performers. Like you couldn't be an entry level in the company unless you were a top performer and potentially a higher position at a former company. You know, like when I came in, that's still that way, right?
Oh yeah.
When I came in about 6-7 years before Esther did, you know, I had come from a management position and I came in as an entry level employee, right? So, but even with that said, you know, Esther was just she was a class above all of that, right? And you know, and like I said before, I mean, it's something that you recognize as soon as you meet her, right? She has this this presence about her. And it's funny, you know, speaking of presence, right? Like I'm thinking about like my impression when I see somebody is that person's presence. But you know, to hear Esther speak about it, it's reminding me that you know, even when I was supposed to be in a position of mentoring her, how much I learned from her, and I'm still learning today. Like it didn't even occur to me when I said earlier about how her intense ability to focus was really, she translated that into some really good coaching for anyone who might be listening to this, right? The concept of being present. All of us who try and do many different things, we're trying to multitask, we're trying to juggle different things. It's very easy to not be present, to be sitting here as I'm talking to you guys, thinking about the next thing I'm supposed to be doing, or the thing that I did before, and trying to process that. You can't do that. And I think that's what's really separated, one of the many things that really separated Esther from others. And her ability throughout that, as you can hear in this conversation, to remain humble about it. You know, it's just really impressive, and it really helps me to recognize how much I learned. I mean, shoot, you know, just the simple fact that I was supposed to be mentoring, and I hadn't really mentored that many people at that point in my career. I'd mentored a few. But you know, seeing her be successful gave me the confidence to think, hey, you know what, maybe I'm okay at this kind of thing, at coaching people, because perhaps I made an impact and contributed to that in some way. But it's just, you know, you can tell what sets her apart just by meeting her.
I have to like jump in. I'm so sorry. If I don't tell this story,
That's right. We can't forget your story about Paul.
I don't tell this story, it's going to eat at me. And it also makes the point that any success, any person's success isn't just based on their talent, isn't also just based on mentorship, but also based on sponsorship. And my purpose in life is to normalize sponsorship as much as possible based on the talent in high-performing individuals. And a time, one of the earliest times in my career where somebody sponsored me, it was Paul. And see, now I'm getting emotional. Dang you. It was my first year as a quota carrying. I wasn't a supporting rep. I had my own number, the second largest number class that came out of that program. And so like eyeballs were on me as like, is she going to screw it up? She got her own number. She didn't like, partner with somebody else. And we're right at the end of the year. I don't know if we were even allowed to say this, but whatever. I'm going to put it out there. We're at the end of the year. And Paul and I were both at like 99% of our number. The exact like percentages, somebody knows better calculation, but let's just call it for what it is, 99%. And our territories butted up against each other or kind of like overlapped. He had the big deals and I had the baby deals in the same territory. We were both at like 99%, or he was maybe 98 and I was at like 99. And he's like, look, Esther, I'm not going to get to my number. I'm telling you right now. But I know how important it is for you in your first year to make your number. And somebody who has the second largest number of the largest classes coming out of this program, I know how important it is going to be for your career, for you to be able to say your first year out of the program, you made your number. And I've got this deal at the end of the year and you've taught me a lot. And I know that there are many ways that you contributed to help me be able to get this deal. And I think you should own this deal with me. If it was not for that deal, I would not have been at 100, and I think it was 110% of plan my first year out of the program. My face was in all this stuff at our sales kickoff, and he would never let me take credit. But I kid you not, throughout that whole sales kickoff and after the accolades and my name on a list, there was a person that made that sponsored making that real for me. And that was Paul. And I wanted to make sure I said that, and I appreciated you for it. We've like never talked about it, but you don't just create opportunities for others, but you are a sponsor for others. And that is more than just, I'm going to, mentor the person that looks different than me. I'm going to, hire more XYZs that look different than me. But it's different when you stick your neck out for somebody at the detriment maybe of yourself, to help them get that launch off point. And you did that for me, and I'm so appreciative.
Now you're going to make me all emotional. Oh, that's really sweet of you to say.
It is such a great story. I'm so glad you shared that. Paul, how does that make you feel to hear that? I mean, I love her distinction. It is different to sponsor because you're putting your capital behind it. You are putting your career and your reputation on the line, and plus the financial impact of bringing her in on a deal.
It's, I mean, I'm almost speechless. I mean, I'm never really speechless, right? But, but I'm almost speechless because I just, we haven't ever talked about that. And I'm really just humbled to hear her say all of that and to say it publicly right now. I mean, all I could say is, I barely remember that incident, but what I do remember about it is that it wasn't a bold, intentional action so much as the right thing to do. I mean, I don't remember it as being my deal that I gave to her with charity. I mean, I've never been like that, and don't think I ever will be like that. Not to say I don't support charities, of course I do, but in a professional capacity, you've got to earn or you never learn, right? And that, from my perspective, was as much hers as it was me. So while I appreciate you saying that I didn't have to do that in my heart, and knowing who I was at the time, of course I had to, right? You did earn that, and you've earned everything that you've ever achieved. So congratulations to you on everything as well.
We have taken so much of your time, Esther, but before we let you go, we have to ask you, tell us about just launching this company and how that came about. Why leave this sort of tried and true, we've got your back, we've given you this opportunity, but now to sort of venture out on your own and take that next risk. Why do it?
Yeah, and especially from such an incredible company where the world is really your oyster. I mean, 150,000 people with contractors all over the world. Any division, any vertical you want to get into, you can get into at this company. And I had the privilege of being able to do that. I've traveled all over the world with the company. I've led businesses all over the world with this company. I've been able to be my 100% self until I wasn't. And I think the inflection point for me was going through a pretty tough time of losing my son during our second trimester, my husband and I. And so graciously, the company allowed me to take maternity leave, even though I didn't have a baby to actually carry. And during that time, it really helped me heal. I came back to work during a tough time during COVID and uncertainty, and I saw so many talented people. Not for any bad reason. Companies then had to reshuffle and change, and complete divisions really went away because of what was happening in the market. But you had great talent doing musical chairs and sitting in the wrong spots. And there wasn't really, especially for revenue facing roles, clear taxonomy for their skill set to quickly reposition them and put them in the right spots so they're exhibiting their true talents, honing into their untapped potential, and then really having the best mental health because of it. And it's really what inspired me to create GrowthQ, to be able to help people understand their skill set and create a standards taxonomy for that skill set so that they can find the roles that make sense for their superpowers. But also, if there are gaps and aspirations, they can find the people like I did, Paul, who have that talent that they could find and learn from. And it doesn't have to be who they know. It could be somebody across the world. I mean, we've connected people from UK to Singapore to Nigeria to across the United States, people who would have never met before, but now both are just that much better because there's a point of connection. And so going through that experience, coming back and then seeing that, I could tell it wasn't just our company that needed it. There were people across the world that needed that type of human connection within this profession that we love so much. So.
Well, I'm sorry for your loss. I appreciate you being open to share what I know is a story that will help others. And what a great silver lining that you're leveraging your expertise to help others, to give people those opportunities and be the connector, the common denominator that leads to, your, I guess, not only your own success, but willing to pay it forward, essentially. And like you described, Paul did for you in that situation, how can anyone watching get more information and connect with you because they just want to be part of your energy and your sphere?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are constantly connecting people. Our product is live right now at growthq.co. That's growthq.co. You can find a mentor. You can connect to a mentee, but you can also connect to talent quickly if you are looking to hire incredible sales talent, but want to build the best diverse team as possible. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. 1.2 million individuals in the last year saw and interacted with my content, and I'm so grateful. And I will hopefully continue to make you all proud. But yeah, please definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And if I can help at all or support you, you are welcome to my personal email address, esther@growthq.co. Again, esther@growthq.co.
That was so cool. Thanks so much for everything you've shared and done to give people a great taste of what Paul described that did not disappoint, Paul. You were correct in suggesting she would be a phenomenal guest. And I have to apologize if this picture captured any of my puppy interruptions. That's something that
Not at all.
Yeah, working from home has its challenges, Esther.
Well, I have 3, and right now they would have tried everything they could to get on screen, but it was not happening for this, not for Paul.
Well, thanks again. It was such a pleasure to talk with you, and we wish you continued success that we have no doubt you will achieve, and so we'll look forward to following where it goes from here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.